Hello, my name is Sheila and I would like to welcome you to my podcast, All About You. I love to listen to podcasts and especially conversations with famous people. However, I think everyone has a story to tell. Maybe a place you have visited, a hobby you enjoy, or anything that you feel would be of interest. I want to have conversations with lots of different people and hear their stories. So if you have a story to tell, please contact me on my email, allaboutyoupodcast@yahoo.com. Welcome to another conversation on the All About You podcast. I'm sure that one of the things we have all missed over the last year or so is travelling to visit loved ones or to experience different countries and cities. So I have a real treat for you. My guest today is Charley London from Totally Tailored. Her company prides itself on a one-size-does-not-fit-all approach to city tours and prides itself on offering tours that are totally tailored to your individual needs and interests. So we have a lot to talk about today. So Charley, welcome to the All About You podcast.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here. Nice to see you.
So Charley, did you grow up wanting to be a tour guide?
Great question. What did I grow up? I grew up wanting to be an actress. Maybe I'm a failed actress, I'm just thinking. But in tour guiding you get to act a lot, and that's quite cool. And I also love learning. So in short answer to your question, no. I don't know if I really, as a child, knew that that was a profession. And even into adulthood, I think I had what a lot of people have, which is the idea that it's not a proper job. For people listening, I just did air quotes there. So I think it took me a little while to realise that you can dedicate yourself to this as a profession and make a career out of it. So no, I didn't know I wanted to be a tour guide. I didn't know that that was a thing when I was younger.
But I think you've got a very valid point there. You're combining being an actress, maybe playing a character, having to learn lines and information. So Charley, how did your journey progress? Being a tour guide, you originally started as a tour guide to creating your own business, Totally Tailored. What was that journey like?
So I got a job on the open top buses in London with the big bus company, which is that main one you see with the guy with the microphone at the front. And I got that job out of university because university was, a lot of academia, and I couldn't wait to just do something fun and free, I suppose. So that was my first job out of uni, and I thought I'll do it for a summer and then I'll get a proper job. I did it for a summer. I loved it so much. And I always said to people, I learnt more on those buses than I did with my degree. I'm a very practical learner and I'm repeating things. If you're doing something if you're saying a thing 3 times a day, 5 days a week, you'll be in the nursing home saying those things. They won't leave you. So I really felt like, oh, wow, what an education. I've fallen in love with London again. But I still had this social pressure, I suppose, that I should get a proper job. So I tried, got a job in an office, really didn't like it, and then had to have a real sit down and look at myself and go, well, you clearly were attracted to that tour guiding thing. You really liked it. Just do that. Find other ways to do that. I got back on the buses, but then I also got jobs with other tour companies and realised there were loads of different things you can do, food tours taking people around Europe. Got a job at the BBC doing tours of the studios there. My CV is starting to become very much like tour guide. And then I had this quite nice job actually giving tours of the BBC. It was one of these rare tour guiding jobs where you actually have a roof over you and you're not exposed to the elements all the time, so that felt very high end. And then some vloggers came into the newsroom. They had got in through pretending they were coming on a tour, and they went into a highly secure area and kind of got in the back of the presenters presenting the news. So we sort of, as a department, got the brunt of the blame for that, and the whole department closed. So it was 40 people losing their jobs. And so that, I suppose, it's one of those things where you're like, great, I've lost my job. But I think everyone has one where it's like, oh, then from the low comes a creative power. So I then get a job working in the BBC shop just to, keep myself going. But no, the amazing thing about the BBC shop when I worked there is no one went to the BBC shop because there was this security problem, meaning they weren't opening the building to the public. The only people that would come would be like a producer's cousin that was coming to visit the building and bought a mug once a day or something. So there I was, just in the shop, getting paid and using the computer to set up my business, really. So I don't know whether I should say that publicly, but I do always think back to those days and think, oh, that was like the perfect scenario. Like I was, in this shop that nobody came to, thinking about what I should do and starting my business really from there. And obviously, yeah, the motivation behind doing it myself was I'd had quite a lot of, frustrations, maybe dissatisfactions, probably a better word, with other tour companies I was working with, where you would, be on a food tour and you'd have to go, this is the best pub in London, it does the best whatever. You'd really be saying that because they had commission and you had to say it and it's words in your mouth. So I thought, I really want to do this, but there's a lot of satisfaction to be had from doing it really, really well. So that was my kind of idea, like just do this but really, really well. How can you do it really well? We'll make it private tours only, because then you can really tailor it to people's needs. And yeah, really just started with my first group back in 2016, and it just grew from there, really. So that was for nearly 5 years ago now.
So Charley, how did you come up with the name Totally Tailored?
So I actually remember, it's got quite a specific answer to this one. I went for a job interview for a food tour job, like being a food tour guide around the East End of London. And one of the questions in that was, what do you think is the most important thing about tour guiding? And then I remember saying, well, I think it's like looking at the individual that you're tour guiding and thinking, what makes this person tick? What are they interested in? So there's no point talking about Harry Potter to someone that's a Tudor fan and just only loves the Tudors or whatever. So I remember answering that question and being like, it's all about being tailored and tailoring your style to the person you've got in front of you. And I remember thinking, oh, that's a really good answer I just gave there. So it stuck with me that is the key. And I think that's the thing that, sometimes there's a cliched example of like quite a dull tour guide. I just think that's what they're missing. They're doing it for them and not for who they're looking at. And I just think it's so important. I think it's the core of good communication. And really it came from that answer to a question in an interview. Tailored. It is. I can't think of anything more important in this job.
I probably say this on every podcast, but I believe that stars align, or you're in the right place at the right time. And I think somebody asking you that question, Totally Tailored, came out, and that was just kept on the back burner, ready for the point where you were beginning to think about starting up your own business. So I think that person obviously played a large part in giving you the name for your company and your business.
Isn't it interesting? And how like someone asking you a question can lead to an idea.
So I've had a really good rummage around on your website. One of the things that really, really strikes me, when you give the profile of some of the different guides on Totally Tailored, you've got somebody there who specialises in the arts, somebody who specialises in stand-up comedy, somebody who specialises in food. So straight away I can think, oh, do I want to tour about stand-up comedy and theatre? Maybe not. Okay, maybe the arts or maybe the food. So straight away I've got some different guides with specialist areas that I can pick from, as well as the opportunity of saying to you, okay, I love fashion. I want to do a fashion tour of London, and you tailor that to, well, what do you want? Vintage? Do you want to go vintage shopping? Do you want to go high end? Where do you want to go? So I think that's one of the things, having your specialist. I think that makes you so very, very different with Totally Tailored.
Yeah, good. Yeah, and it's great getting people talking about what they're passionate in. Like, then you don't have to have scripts or anything. If you've got someone talking about what they're passionate in, they're happy. That enthusiasm comes across. I don't do Harry Potter tours, for example. I'm always asked to do them. I think, why not give this to someone who loves talking about Harry Potter? Just makes sense. Yeah, so yeah, thanks for that.
So, Charley, the idea of somebody being a tour guide, sounds quite glamorous. You're not in an office 9 to 5, you're out in the sunshine, you're meeting new people. It's probably not like that at all, is it? You're out, when I watched one of your tours out in the rain in Trafalgar Square, the wind was howling, but you were there with a smile and all your knowledge. So what are some of the challenges and what are some of the best things about being a tour guide?
So to your point of like being out in the rain, to me, that is still preferable to being in an air-conditioned office. I think it is nice to be outside, like in general. I'm not just saying in the sun. I'm saying, like, I think we are supposed to be outside maybe. And like, I'm really lucky that like my job has that element. So the challenges, I suppose there's two types of challenges. There's a challenge of running my own business and there's a challenge of being the tour guide. I'll start with the challenges of running my own business are things like Corona that I had no idea that was going to come my way. I remember doing like strategy planning, being like, well, unless they close the borders, like, why would they close the borders? If it was World War III or something, and then this thing comes up and you're like, whoa, like things are more fragile than I thought. And I'm going to have to make this business survive, let people go, just stay okay through a sort of year of not doing the thing that gives you value and makes you feel like worthwhile and good, like I'm good at this, so when I do it I feel good. So just like a shake up like that is huge. And I know we've all had a tough year, but I think I speak for tour guides everywhere who just like it's quite a loss of identity. That may sound extreme, but if you're used to kind of getting like positive feedback from people all the time and like being out and that's taken away, it's tricky. So that's sort of, I suppose, one of the risks and challenges of having your own business. I'm starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel now. But let's make no bones about it. It's been a terrible year for tourism. And challenges of being a tour guide, the thing is there aren't many. I was going to say, like, sometimes you will get like a group you don't like. So I specialize in private tours. And I would say like 1 in 100, sometimes you just don't gel, but then you just get to be an actress, which is what I always wanted to be, remember? So then you just pretend to like people. And then your like acting skills can really come out. I used to do this very stressful job, which was taking 40 teenagers from London, Paris, Rome. And, it's one of these things where they've got 5 minutes in each country and they're sold this dream, which looks like they're having tea at Buckingham Palace. And actually you're traveling in Croydon and you're having to be like, welcome to London, guys. And you're in Croydon. That was really hard. And I think I would find that easier now. But when I was doing that, this is a good few years ago now, I think I used to really care about people liking me, and you'd see kind of them sort of maybe be dissatisfied with the whole process and the tour and sort of slightly turn against you. I found that very, very difficult. Some people are much better at that than me, but I think at the age and stage that I was, like, I found not having a good relationship with the people I was guiding around almost like crushing, like really, really difficult. And of course, there's so much that can go wrong in that job. You lose a child in the Louvre, and then you're talking to a French person and you're bad French, and they don't have a system for finding lost children. So you just, you just kind of like, it's high stakes, really.
So what about some of the best things of being a tour guide then? So out in the fresh air.
Being out in the fresh air.
You must meet some real characters though in your tour groups.
Yeah, exactly. With the private tours as well. It's like it's being a tour guide, but it's also being a friend for the day. I mean, what other time do you get insight? So I'll be with a family from Wisconsin or something, and I'll be with them for the whole day and have lunch with them. And like, what other job do you get like that level of access to people's personal lives? Like, you're sitting there having a lunch with them and they're having an argument or something, and you think, oh, I feel quite like privileged to like get a real like insider's view, because, you know, like I'm just like on their family holiday. So it's almost like what do they call it when you're, it's like a holiday from me, from my own family and life, from just being part of someone else's holiday.
Yeah, I probably realise every family's dysfunctional.
And like, yeah, exactly. But also like all the different types of families you can have, and all the different dynamics, and the way that parents are with their kids is beautiful, really. Yeah, and you're just the tour guide, so you're there to learn about history, but talk about history. But secretly, I'm just, you know, psychoanalyzing everybody.
Yeah, so be aware if you go on one of Charley's tailored tours, you're going to be psychoanalysed.
Just so you know, I don't make any notes or take it any further than my head. So you don't need to worry.
So, Charley, there must have been some funny things that have happened on the tours. I mean, losing children and people being locked in the loo, I'm sure is quite a normal thing. But what are some of the funny things that have happened on tours?
Some of the funny things. I once had a Prince William lookalike on my bus when I was tour guiding on the open top buses, and that was really funny. And he was here from New York for like a Prince William lookalike conference.
Oh, really?
So he gave loads of attention, and it was really cool. And he had this like girlfriend who was just like really bored of it all. It was really funny. So you kind of just mad stuff like that comes up. Yeah, I don't know, funny. Sometimes like tragically funny if I'm thinking back to some of my days going through Europe, just being like, oh God, yeah, I can't stand this. Or like, I've just got, you know, lost control of this group or whatever. Yeah, I'll have a think. I bet you I've got a really funny story. I just need to think more specifically about it.
So, Charley, you do tours in London and Edinburgh and Scotland. Yeah. So do you have a favourite tour of London?
Yeah, I love giving the Borough Market food tour. I mean, I've always loved Borough Market, right? Always. I've just thought, like, when you go there, I just love markets. I love the buzz of people. I love food. It's the best food. It's just like a place like no other. It's so much history there, so many characters there. So it was always like the first tour I developed was just like that one, because I was like, how can you maximize your enjoyment here? So it's a 5-course roaming meal. You start with like a bacon bap at a cafe and a cup of tea, and I introduce the market and ask you what you know about the market. Okay, well, this is how it works. And then we go and have some meat tasting with a meat producer, you know. And so throughout it, it's not just my voice, but other people's voices are coming in. The cheese guys talking about cheese, and then we go have a Scotch egg by the river and we talk about the history of the river. And then we go through like maybe beyond the market into like a wine warehouse where we'd have some wine tasting. And it's like, you know, it's sort of just for me, like that would be the tour I would want to go on, like sensations everywhere, like the sensations of the market traders, but the sensations of the food and the drink, and, you know, feeling like when people eat together, they relax a lot more. So just love giving it, love being there in the market. And then one of the things I did during lockdown, because there have been no tours, is I got a job selling ham and cheese at the mozzarella and Parma ham store there. And I love it. Like I'm there every Thursday and Saturday. So now I'm like a trader. So I'm like properly, I mean, I'm not blowing my own trumpet when I think I'm like the best person in London to guide in Borough Market, because it's the first tour I've done. So I've been doing it for about 5 years, but also now I kind of know it from the inside. I know a lot of the people, and it's that thing where you walk with a crowd, and not a crowd, a group, because I just do the private tours, but one family, and you're walking past a stall and they're like, hello, Charley, and you just feel like your life's a film and everyone's connected, and it's just a really lovely feeling. And I think people pick up on that you're like, you know, you're not just walking around this like it's a museum, but you're part of it and people know you. And I think that's, you know, really, really good value.
I think as well, when you go to another country or another city, finding out about the food and drink is a real education. Mm-hmm. You know, what is that? I mean, most cities are known for some kind of food or drink, and tasting those and learning the history and maybe what the manufacturing process is and how it's grown, etc. That really, really gives you a sense of the food and the drink, as well as how it works in that city, the history. So yeah, I love the fact that you go round and try all the little bits and the Scotch eggs down at the river and that. Yeah, I should imagine that is a really popular one.
And it's supporting small business as well, and I'm a small business, so it's like that's reflected in the tour. Like, we don't, like I used to do when I work for other people, go to any chains. It's all like, cool, like I'm looking at, like, you know, people like me, I suppose, that have small businesses that appreciate customers coming in if the dynamic's right. And, you know, it's that kind of thing. That's like a really strong value for me, is supporting small business.
I think one of the positive things that has come out of the year and a half we've had with the pandemic is people are now more conscious of, instead of going to their local supermarket, use the corner shop, the local grocery. That hopefully will continue once we, in theory, get back to normal. That yes, it is important to support your local.
Yeah, because apart from anything else, a lot of these, like at the store, like that I work at, we have, you know, our regulars, and it's that old-fashioned thing of like, oh, we haven't seen him for a while, hope he's all right, you know, like looking at, you know, you don't get that with an Amazon delivery, like thinking this might be during lockdown, like this might be somebody's only conversation they've had all day, so I tried to make it really good when I'm just selling some cheese, right? Because it's like, that's like a community. So I'm making it sound really grand, but it is a community service, and if we lose that, there's going to be a lot of like people that lose quite an element important. We're not going to lose Borough Market, but if we lose those shops where the shopkeeper has a conversation with the elderly person or whatever, that's a big loss, I think.
Yeah, I think it works for both sides. It's supporting your shopkeeper, plus for you are making that connection to your local businesses. We as shoppers will get the benefit of supporting those businesses and keep them alive, definitely. So, Charley, you're doing tours in London and in Edinburgh. Can you talk about some of the Edinburgh tours? What sort of tours are on offer?
Yeah, so Edinburgh was the second city that, you know, we joined, and I added that city because I've been up there for the Fringe, and I've stayed up there, and I've got good friends up there, and I actually lived there for a year in order to set up the business up there. So it's like a place that I feel very connected to. And yeah, the whole model is similar. So it's like we're going to find the best guides, and that's why I went and lived there for a year, who will do the tour that you want. So we've got a guide that does genealogy tours if you want to look into your ancestry and so on. We do a national museum tour. We do an art tour with a really specialist guide. We've got a food tour up there. We've just added like a farm tour where you can go into just an hour's drive from Edinburgh and meet the farmer and like meeting the animals and stuff. Some people really love that. Yeah, and a whiskey storytelling type thing as well. So it's like the same thing, but just with a Scottish flavour and with really great Scottish guides as well.
So London, Edinburgh, any other cities on your radar you're going after? Any thoughts?
I mean, I would really quite like to be able to say that, you know, I can do the whole of the UK. And London and Edinburgh are the most visited by our demographic, which is Americans. But it would be nice, I mean, if anyone's listening to this who's a tour guide in Dublin, it would be nice to partner with someone there. I think what I learned from my year in Edinburgh is find the specialists in that area and form a partnership, rather than, you know, like I will always be a better London guide than I will be a Scottish guide, because I have the cultural background, right? Like I can say, oh, when I was younger, we used to feed the pigeons in Trafalgar Square, right? So I've got that. And finding other people like that around the world is like what I want to do. So yeah, I think in answer to your question, I would like to have Dublin, so then I've got like the UK. But Totally Tailored is a name that doesn't have to be any particular place, does it? So I think for me, it comes from the personalities. One of the great things about lockdown is I have connected with quite a lot of guides in different places, and I'm part of this organisation called Private Guides of Europe, which is like we've chosen the best tour operator in each European country, and we have like an association. So through that, I've met some cool people, and I suppose it's a long-term plan to just build the relationships first, and then think about the totally tailored offering that could be in that country with the people I have the best relationships with.
So if we go back in time then, Charlie, imagine you're on that red bus
Hmm.
touring around London, and if somebody has said to you, okay, in a few years you're going to have your own company, you're going to be dealing with London, Edinburgh, you're going to be working with other guides in different countries. Do you think the seeds were in your mind back in the day?
It's a really good question. I find it quite hard to answer things like that because obviously I'm not there anymore. I'm just like trying to picture myself on the buses being like, and like I say, when I started, I thought it was a fun job. It wasn't really anything serious. So probably not. I'd probably be quite amazed that I had done that. And then I suppose after thinking would be like, oh yeah, it does make quite a lot of sense actually. Yeah, it's difficult to think in those terms, but I think I've always been entrepreneurial without knowing that was the word for it. I started a comedy night in Soho. Like I was always trying to start things at university, and there have been several, when I actually think about it, things where it's like, okay, I've had enough of being like the employee now. Can I like have the reins, please? And I've had a lot of no's, obviously. So Totally Tailored has been a place where I've been able to exercise that properly.
So, what have you learnt about yourself over the years being a tour guide and setting up your own business?
So I guess I think I've learned that I am, whatever I do in life, it has to be really creative and variable and outside, really. Like the idea now of having a job where I had to go and sit in an office is like you're taking one of my human rights away. So I've learned that like I've built a kind of career and job around what like my needs are really as a human, which are like all these things to like be happy. And yeah, so I think I've learned that what I sort of need from work, if that makes sense. And I think I've learned that like running a business is quite lonely, and that's definitely not a reason not to do it. But like one of the prices of all the freedom and maybe some of the success and some of the money and all of that is like a sense of like, okay, there's no one here telling me I've done it right or I've done it well, or so that can be quite, I don't know if lonely is the word, but quite intense, I suppose. And I think I'm learning, as in I haven't really worked it out yet, but like what sort of success do I want? So I guess when I started my business, I was part of this accelerator program, and it was all about getting bigger. And, this is the whole capitalist model, get bigger, better, and, then conquer the world and be totally tailored worldwide. And I think now I'm working out like, what does my version of success look like and what do I want? Because I really, when I started my business, wanted freedom from having to work for someone else, freedom financially, and freedom of creativity, right? And there was a point where my business got to the stage where I was like, I'm less free than I've ever been because I can't go on holiday, or like this, I have to answer this, the buck stops with me. So it's sort of like, I think that's quite important to think about your motives of freedom, and then how can I not get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger for no reason, but sustain that level of freedom that I was after in the first place.
I think that's a really good answer. I think you've gone quite deep and meaningful.
Yeah, very deep and meaningful.
On your website, and I did say I had a really good dig around here, so there's no test, it's not a test, but you've got a totally tailored learning package.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain what that is, where the idea comes from, and what it is all about?
So Totally Tailored Learning was a project I started in lockdown because we have a huge network of like American guests that love our tours, have been on 3 of our tours and really have a connection to us. And a lot of them were saying like, how can we help, or like, how can we stay in touch? And I guess I saw a lot of people doing virtual tours. So I thought, what could we do that was slightly different? Because I always want to look or appear or see, have an offering that's different. So with all these specialists, like we've got a history of art specialist, we've got a Harry Potter expert, what could they provide? So these are 4-week courses that can be done anywhere. from our specialist tour guides, because tour guides make really good teachers, because they're actually like, their craft is all about making information accessible and entertaining. So for kids, it's perfect, So we had Jasmine, one of the guides, doing a like history of women tour. She made really, really interesting for these two kids, and the kids had her on a tour before, because they make quite good connections, the guides, with the groups. So that these kids that have had her as a tour guide are able to now have a 4-week learning course with her and remember Jasmine from London, and now she's here teaching us. And for me, it was less of a project to kind of another business, but more just a way to bridge this very long gap we've had in COVID between the guests and the guides that do have really lovely personal connections, and so that we don't go away, really. What can we do when we can't tour guide? That was really answering that question. Totally tailored learning, yeah.
I think it's a fantastic idea.
Yeah, and it works quite well, because I think there's some parents who have the idea that their kids' education system doesn't tick all the boxes they want it to. For example, like female history in there, or is there the history of art, for example, which is another course we did. Is that in the education system in America? Not really. So they've got this access to this sort of more European education. And yeah, the whole idea, again, like at the heart of everything, is we'll totally tailor it. So, have a consultation with the parent or the person, the learner, and find a course that really, really fits for them.
I mean, before finding your website, I would never have thought that I could get in touch with the company and say, okay, I'm coming to London, I'm really interested in fashion. Can you put together a day tour to take me on a history of fashion or vintage or a particular era or decade?
Yeah.
I wouldn't even have thought that would have existed. I would have thought maybe I would have to do my own homework and get a couple of books and work it out myself. But the fact that you can do that, just literally give you a topic or a theme, and you put it all together, I think is incredible.
Yeah, I wonder. I think the US male market are aware that that's a thing, but yeah, whenever I speak to people and I say I've got a tour company in London, they always just immediately, I can see it in their head, they picture someone with a flag and a coach full of 30 people jumping on and off a bus. And we can do that, but it's not really what we set out to do. But I think that's more of a kind of European idea of what tours are. Yeah, what we're trying to do is something kind of different, like a friendly host with a day that shows you what you want to see.
One of my memories, when I came to London one year, I went to the Museum of London, and I booked a tour, but just a general tour. Lucky for me, there was one other lady and the tour guide, so just the three of us. And this lady took us around, and because we were a small group, we had her sort of, undivided attention, and the different questions we were asking and the different information. It was just incredible. And I came away from that tour thinking, oh my God, that was just brilliant. If there had been 30 of us, I'm sure it would have been very different.
Yeah.
But that was a case of being in the right place at the right time. And it was just an incredible experience.
Yeah, it sounds it. Because it's conversational, isn't it? It's a conversation.
Yeah, I mean, as you're going around, you're spotting different things, and can you tell me about? Oh, right, yes, and you could tell sort of what was the script. She knew she was going to stop at these points, and then we ask a question. Well, yes, actually, I can tell you about that. That was donated to us 5 years ago by XYZ, and we got sort of the background history to what the item was, which just made it come to life. There was the story of the person who donated the item, etc. And it just brought it all to life. So I can really see the benefit of having a totally tailored tour to a theme or an interest.
Yeah.
So, Charley, my last question. What should I have asked you that I haven't about tour guiding, totally tailored tours, London, Edinburgh, or anything else?
Well, I thought you did very well. What should you have asked me about tour guiding, totally tailored? I mean, I'm sure this is already in the pipeline, but maybe how people can see my work now, and a little bit about virtual tours, because that's how we met, isn't it?
Yes.
So we met doing one of the other things, the projects I was able to find out during lockdown.
Yeah, you took me round Trafalgar Square in the rain.
Yeah, and virtual tours was a concept that when I heard about it, straight after the lockdown, I was like, that sounds like boring, and didn't feel like something I wanted to get on board with, because sometimes a virtual tour is used to mean someone giving a PowerPoint presentation over Zoom. But no, now there are all these companies, and now I'm heavily involved in giving virtual tours.
Can you explain what a virtual tour is, Charley, please?
So I think the term I'm kind of settling on is talking about live streamed tours, because that's really what we're talking about. So I go out into the streets, and I'm actually going out tonight to Trafalgar Square again, and I'm going to go to St James's Park and look at the animals. I'll go out with a stabilizer, a phone and a microphone, and I give a tour live with this equipment, and during that tour people join. They can interact live by typing, so I can answer their questions. I try to make it as much like the real experience of being with me as possible. So that's kind of standing under my umbrella with me, and like getting really close up to the lion and looking at things, or there's the hawk man of Trafalgar Square, let's try and see if he'll talk to us. It's very much suited to my style, because my style is very much like improvise, like I'm going to go off script if I see the Hawkman, right? So the live element is really cool, and yeah, things have happened on there, like someone's been jumped into the fountains at Trafalgar Square, or like I've seen a really unusual pelican in St James's Park, and things like that kind of come and happen, and it's because it's live, it's really special. A lot of these tours are tip supported, so people don't have to pay, which really means that people that maybe will never come to London have been able to join, like financially, age-wise, mobility-wise, whatever. So they're able to get kind of close. And yeah, it's been quite a revelation, really, and quite a new skill to have learned during this time.
So how can people get on your tours? Do they go through the Totally Tailored website?
So for the virtual tours, I would recommend every week, right, my main project, the one that I've dedicated the most time to in virtual world, is live from a London bus. Sunday, I get on a different public bus, different number, and I do a live stream tour from that public bus. So, it's always been my view that, when I was working on the open top buses, it would be 30 quid to get on there and have maybe a jaded guide talk about things. But what you can do with me is you can join for free. We get on the 159, we go from Brixton to Marble Arch, and I talk about what we see, and it's a public bus, so anything can happen, and sometimes it's late or sometimes it goes on diversion, but because I know London, I deal with it. So go to Facebook and search for live from a London bus, and I've already got over 500 members on a Facebook group, and it's building this community now. It's this community of bus riders, a lot of them being people that used to live in London who are very nostalgic about it. Some of people are like really just into buses, and that's the kind of virtual project that you can find. And it's just Charley London, how you can find me on Facebook, and if you find me there, or even if you like Totally Tailored, you'll find it there. It's all sort of connected, but that's kind of my personal guiding project. I always say that my mission is to get the world riding on a London public bus.
I think that is absolutely brilliant. Live from a London bus. Each week you take a different number bus.
Exactly. Everyone on the bus thinks I'm mental, but that's fine. And I sit there and I try and get the front seat, and the bus driver never bats an eyelid. And it's like, it's really been nice for me, because now I'm like, I really know the bus system. It's just quite hard to conquer in London. It's not like the tubes where it's all very, very clear. So, it's the best view in the world, isn't it? The top of the bus. Seeing all the tops of the buildings and the world go by, it's better than any restaurant view or any bar view, in my view.
So these go out every Sunday at what time, UK time?
Every Sunday at now 8:30 p.m. UK time, and it's live streamed through Facebook. So you don't actually need a Facebook account. It's done through Facebook Live. So it's just me, with my gimbal, getting on a different bus. This Sunday, what day are we on today? Oh, it doesn't matter because this isn't live.
But just for interest, what number bus are you going on this Sunday?
This Sunday, I'm going on the 139. I'm going to go from Baker Street to Waterloo. We're going to start with Sherlock Holmes statue, and then we're going to get on the 139, take us through Bloomsbury, and then we're going to end with a Waterloo sunset. I'm going to get off the 139 on Waterloo Bridge, and then you see all the colours, all the pinks come in. You play the Kink song, giving it away now. Beautiful. It's like really bus tours. What I'm trying to do is there's a sense of theatre to them, right? Beginning, middle, end, and having that kind of Waterloo sunset. So Baker Street to Waterloo on the 139 this Sunday.
We're recording this live today, and I have no idea what the date is today. 28th, is it?
Yeah.
I'm going to be on that bus with you on Sunday, Charlie.
Yeah.
So 8:30 UK time, 9:30 my time. It has been a pleasure. It's been so interesting. Thank you so much.
Thank you for letting me talk about myself. I really enjoyed it.
You are very welcome. And I will put links to Totally Tailored, Charley London, Facebook Live. I'll make sure those are all on the relevant pages. So, Charlie, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you.
I hope you have enjoyed the conversation. Don't forget, if you have a story you would like to tell, please get in touch. My email address is allaboutyoupodcast@yahoo.com, and thank you for listening.